one cost center at the building department or something like that.
We
Just
focus
or to
on
IT.
that in the next year, on consolidating. If it's right to be in one department, I think at one point it was, and then we decided to put it back out to each department and show its true value in different departments. I think, does that sound familiar, Mrs. Hardy?
That's correct. We
Yeah.
wanted to see how much each department was spending because there was an inordinate difference
Yeah.
between the phone bills in some departments.
So now when we go to an internet-based voice over internet
that's
provider,
It seems like it would be.
all you do
You
is
shouldn't
pay
see
for
a separate bill.
Yeah.
Necessarily
You're not actually
a
paying-
uptick from one
You're not
department to
paying
another.
for billable hours. You're not even paying for long distance anymore when it's
Right.
on the internet. So we might
that
be
should
able to
streamline that.
consolidate
Yeah.
that and have one bill and one phone line going in.
Because otherwise, I don't know how you track it when we
Right,
get to that point.
right, indeed.
I have no questions. Seems like it's a pretty responsible budget, and glad to hear about the success.
Thank you.
Any questions from general? Any further comment?
Well, I did want to make
Yes.
one thing. Years ago, speaking about departments having line items and then being pulled out, years ago, vehicle maintenance was in my department, which thankfully, it went to Public Works because I never knew what the heck I was doing. But one of the things that is new is vehicle inspections, and that was asked by Public Works because every other year my vehicles go through a DMV inspection, and so now that's, so this is something that will be every other year, that $300 or however much it's going to be that they charge.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. It's a required inspection, and we kept it within your department instead of putting it up at Chuck Holyfield's or Joe's. So thank you for pointing that out. Continue doing so much with so little. And
You're making me nervous
For
now,
so
Mark.
many.
Why? Why? I didn't write you up for anything. I do nothing but sing your praises all
I
the
know
time,
that.
and Darlene will back me on that, right? You do great work up there,
Yeah.
and every time I go in there, everyone whispers in my ear, "You're great, people, the citizens that go up to the senior center." Incidentally, let's do one PSA for your group. We talked about the visiting of the Meals on Wheels program, and you were telling me in a discussion, because I pop into your building every once in a while, telling me that if you had more people come to the senior center for lunch, that it would help the federal assistance that we get because you'd have more meal counts.
So here's it's a crazy. So back in the early '60s, the Older Americans Act was created, and the Senior Nutrition Program funds comes out of the Older Americans Act. At that time, the big driver was the cafe meals or the congregate meals, the meals that are in actual locations. So that was the big where people put those nutrition dollars. In today's world, that's not really what brings people to senior centers, and that's where a lot of senior centers also started to develop, was around those senior nutrition sites. Now, more money is needed in the Meals on Wheels piece of it because folks aren't coming to senior centers to have lunch. Not usually. They're coming for everything else. But the funding hasn't changed. So what drives the nutrition dollars is the attendance at the senior nutrition congregate sites, the cafe sites. So when those numbers drop, they can't just funnel the money over to the Meals on Wheels numbers because that's where the increase is coming. And it's some sort of government funding thing.
Yeah.
But that's so they're looking to really try to increase the congregate numbers, which will in turn help the Meals on Wheels numbers. And I don't really understand it all because I don't really do that budget.
So it's really confused. So the more people that you have come to the senior center at the community center and have lunch there, and they have to make a reservation.
Right,
they call into the phone number. What's the phone number?
860-739-5859.
5859. And they call and say, I'm coming for lunch Wednesday, I'm bringing a girlfriend. And they have to kind of be a registered senior center person. And they're going to be over the age of
60.
60. And if you made that a habit once every 3 weeks, you would be actually doing us a favor. You'd be doing other seniors in town a favor because then there'll be more funding available for the people that are housebound and depend on Meals on Wheels, and you would help our programming out. So we kind of want to get that message because that's a simple message. You get to go, you get to socialize, meet people, meet neighbors and people like-minded and like-aged, and get a pretty decent lunch. Let me tell you, the people over there make gourmet compared to what I have for lunch sometimes, and you're helping.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a form of aid. So great message. Why not throw that in tonight? So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We'll keep on promoting that, and we should talk about it as selectmen wherever we go.
Well, before you go away, so March is Mayors for Meals.
Oh dear. Oh, I did this last year.
Yes. But it's so anybody who's interested in going out and delivering Meals on Wheels, just to do it one time. It's
Can they all go?
Yes, of course.
I couldn't encourage you guys more, ladies, to join our Meals on Wheels driver, and you'll get to deliver 6 or 8 meals, and it's great. And get to meet some folks and see what they do. They check in. They don't dump food on the front step or on the table and run. They check in. They hang out. They have a conversation. Yet they also have a meal, several other meals in their vehicle, so they want to keep them warm and keep the car moving down the road. But they are sometimes the recipient's only human contact for the day.
Correct.
So it's what a service. What a great service. I did it last year with Dave Putnam's dad, who's a great man.
Yeah.
You know, the apple didn't fall far from the tree there. And but you have many drivers and many opportunities for this. So when this comes up, let's get it to Darlene. We'll
will.
get it out there.
Okay.
And I could encourage you with more enthusiasm.
Well,
to do
before we
this.
get off of that subject, one, my Meals on Wheels drivers are incredible. They're so dedicated. And once people do this as a volunteer, they love it, and that they don't want to not do it. And in fact, I have somebody that goes to Myrtle Beach for 6-8 weeks, and like almost makes me promise in blood that he will have his route when he comes back. So they're very, very dedicated. And then the people that are in the kitchen that are either doctoring the meals, which maybe we shouldn't say out loud, or putting things together, they also are very dedicated. And while we're talking about it, this program, the Senior Nutrition Program, typically has a site server that is a TVCCA employee, and they sort of manage the congregate and the Meals on Wheels program. Well, it's been, I think we're at definitely a year and a half where we have not had a consistent site server, but we are so blessed to have such terrific volunteers that they really just run the show. I go in there, hey, is everything okay? They're like, get out. Okay, fine. and so it's really remarkable. So they're really dedicated volunteers.
All right, last 10 seconds. Roughly how many volunteers do you have at the senior center?
I would say about 50 to 60.
50
right
to
now.
60 people volunteer for our town in little capacities and big capacities. And we can always use more. So, again, if you're interested, contact Kathy Wilson.
860-739-5859.
This is not an insurance commercial. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wilson, for all the work you do.
Thank you.
And you are indeed building a legacy over there. Oi.
Well, Mark and I will be seeing you at the Rotary Senior.
That's right.
Enjoy.
Yeah. Yes.
Take care.
Hey, Joe, come on back up. Joe Bergar will open up our highway and sanitation budget, and then we'll, as aforementioned, we'll look at vehicle acquisition program. Just a briefing on it. Then we'll do revenue, then we'll get to the meat of the business, which isn't much tonight. So which department are we opening?
317.
I knew you were going to ask.
I get more lost as the season goes on. Joe, you know the drill. You've been
Yep.
here all night. Thank you for your patience. I'm
No
sorry
problem.
to
I'm
keep
fine.
you here all night. Again, this is a lot of moving parts in this budget. There always is. A lot of guesswork, too, because you're predicting storms for 2017.
Yep.
So take us through some of the highlights or lowlights. Mostly highlights.
Sure. I'll just kind of go through each section and kind of highlight the different things that have changed or some notable items. On the personal services, we're not adding any new people. That's just straightforward as far as contractual raises or So there's nothing new specifically in that account. 200 to services contract operations. There's no change to that. We're trying to make do with the funds that are already proposed this year. There were a few little bit of changes in the services contracted operation for the waste, bulky waste. The line 295 scare tipping fee went up 5,000. Just to let you know, it's kind of ironic because in that line, not only is what we pick up, the highway department picks up residential, the municipal solid waste, but all the commercial solid waste is picked up by commercial haulers. They go to the CVS's, they go to all the dumpsters. When they just to let you know, maybe you know this, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of it. When all the commercial haulers pick that up, they go up to SCARA and we get billed for that, but then we charge them. So that's an actual revenue. So even though it says 585,000, what I'm finding is that there's more commercial waste, and I can track it because SCARA sends me every month how much. So our commercial waste is actually going up, which means my expenditure line goes up. However, I'm getting more revenue, which you don't see. So,
But they do see.
Well,
on a different line,
but typically I follow that expenditure. So the revenue is going up in that line. So it's technically not really going up.
I had just a pencil note there. That's about a $300,000
Correct.
revenue
That's
source in there. So
290,000.
yeah,
Yes.
so there's $290,000 in revenue offsetting that.
Yep.
That line. So that's
In the
just-
action of this board
and
by
you'll see
raising the fees comparably to all the other towns, so we weren't like, sticking to the business or anything. Our rate just happened to be a glitch of much lower than everyone else's, and because of that, sometimes the commercial haulers will say it's from East Lyme, but now we've eliminated
Fix
that inequity. Fleet maintenance, the line you see goes up $10,000, but if you look at the actual expense from 2005, and if I track back, the actual average we've been spending on vehicle maintenance has been about $208,000 over the last 3 years. So even though I'm showing 10,000 increase, it's actually more a reality number. So it's not, because we have this vehicle acquisition, it's not like we're trying to grow this line. If anything, it's actually staying where it is, and that's because we do have a lot of equipment. Even though we've been getting newer equipment into the fleet, there are some really the sweeper, the flail mower, which there's some piece of equipment that was cut last year, but some of those pieces of equipment are very expensive to keep operating. So, and then we do that fleet maintenance line is the maintenance of Kathy's buses, all the police cars, Parks and Rec. In all the town stuff, there's a lot of equipment. If you go to the next operating expenses, the only I did change up things a little bit. I'm not a big fan of miscellaneous lines, as I doubt the boards are. So I've been in the last few years breaking out. If you notice, in 2015, the actual expense for supplies and miscellaneous was $32,000, and that's shrinking because I'm trying to allocate it to specific things. I hate to buy safety equipment for my guys on a miscellaneous line. So, we're just like you heard from the police department, they have a lot of training needs. We have a lot of training needs. There wasn't anywhere on my budget. I would usually take training out of supplies and miscellaneous, which I don't think is really, a good accurate indication. So, if you the supplies and miscellaneous from last year. And then what's proposed this year went down 5,000, but it's kind of redistributed into the proper lines. In store materials and supplies, it went up. It's going up, or proposing it going up from 159,600 to 186,000. And that's really the last 3 years we've been averaging about 2,100 tons of salt. I'll try to find the exact number. I believe it is. And 2,100 tons.
21.
But if you do the math, the 159,600 that we had, if you take 2,100 tons of salt times $85 a ton, it comes up to 170. So I wasn't even budgeting the proper amount of salt. So I'm trying to get up. And now we have the new dome, and if you're out the Capitol driveway, you can see we've put in the new dome that can hold more. So I'm trying to put a proper amount of salt so that we can have a full full year salt in the budget. The fleet fuel, we were able to lock in prices at a, with all the fuel that, with the fuel costs going down, we were able to bring that down $10,000. Street lights, I know I came in front of this board and talking about the street light acquisition program. The reason this is going up to 200,000 is not necessarily having anything to do with me purchase or the town looking to purchase it. If you notice in that the actual spends in 2015 of 196, one of the things that I'm trying to get a hold of is, say for instance, we have these beautiful decorative lights that were just now put in the streetscape in front of Grace and coming up Pennsylvania Avenue. There's another 8 or 9 lights that gets charged here. So it's always when the planning commission, the zoning commission has a new subdivision. Oh, let's put lights every 500 feet. It comes here, and I can't keep a hold. Every year we're getting more street lights, but
Joe gets the bill.
No one's telling me.
Right.
Gary Geisel will say, "Oh, we have these lights going in here. What's nice? Are you paying for them?" So they come here. So the street light account's growing because there's more street lights in town, and I have no control of it because our commissions are asking for them. So I wish I could say I'm not raising that account, but I have no control over all these lights that keep going into town. And LoSiP and Town Aid Road are pretty much the same. So with a $3.8 million budgets, we're showing a 2% increase, and I think that's pretty reasonable for keeping all the operations. And I did show you in the earlier meeting the spreadsheet that I had. If you look at the increased revenues that we're having plus the one-time rebate, when we go forward with the street light purchased, it would show that we're actually in the black. We'd be the budget this year, including revenues, would be less for public works than it is this present year.
And you'd be fine if they didn't keep making you put up new street lights.
Yeah, well, unless you put them in the planning account.
Give it back to him, right?
Give it back to them.
Yeah.
So,
But going forward, if we go through that streetlight program where we put LEDs in, our operating costs a couple of years out will dramatically be lower.
Correct. As I showed in the presentation, there's two parts. There's the rental rate and there's the electricity rate. Bless you. And the rental rate goes down by 75%, and the electricity supply goes down by 90%. So that's why that program works. I believe Lyme just bought their lights. The London's bought the lights. They're converting to LEDs. Most towns are looking. The progressive towns are looking this way as a good way to save some money and provide the same service.
So that 200K is going to go down to like 50, 40K?
Well,
I forget what the number was that you had. But it's
the 200K
significant.
is going to stay the same, but it's going to take 6 years to buy the lights.
That's right. Yep.
But in the first year, as part of the lights, you would get a rebate for all the LEDs. So that's a one-time revenue, which is showing. And then years 2 through 6, we'd be in the process of paying out the cost of buying the infrastructure, the cost of the LED lights, and the cost of the installation, which that was the thing that's going to be probably in the range of $700,000-800,000. But that's the cost. But it would be paid for by that line item for 5-6 years, and then when you get to the 7th year, then you drop down 70-80%.
Wow. Okay.
Right at the time when we're going to be getting hit with a lot of future debt, so it's actually a good timing.
Yep.
Part of the danger of being so good is the expectation bar rises. Yet your men, I assume all men. I don't think I've met a lady on your team, but
We have
people
women
on your team.
in the
Let's
whole
just-
team. It
is right. So
They're all
ladies that
professionals.
work for you, all the professionals, continue to impress. There's letters to the editor that we saw last week. There's phone calls into my office after every storm. that are nothing but positive. And you know, you're out there this weekend, this freaky little storm that happened a couple nights ago. And sure enough, they're out there getting the job done, and you know, and getting kids to school, and instead of, you know, another snow day because we didn't do it right. And even this morning, the roads were slick, and I noticed there was rock salt and sand down. You know, you're out there getting the job done, and people do notice. They know that we have 100. Sorry, how many miles? 120, 114 miles.
114.
Now that's about here to Boston, right? 114 miles or so.
Yeah, it's 110
And you
miles
can't
to Boston.
drive, you know, 70 miles an hour plowing a road. So think about how long it would take you to get to Boston, and that's one side of the road. So then you got to drive, you know, you're going to come back, and that's the other side of the road, and that's just one sweep through the town. It's amazing the amount of roads we have and what you do to keep them up. So we appreciate it, and it's not just Storm; it's all these programs. Appreciate what you do. Dan, any questions?
I was just interested in the online 296, the bulky waste transfer tipping. That's going down, and I didn't know, are people bringing fewer things to the transfer station, or just TVs getting lighter when they drop them off? Is that what it is?
Well, it's hard to, I have a very good grasp of what's going in there now, but if you look back in 2000, because I've been doing this now for the last 2 years, but
Yeah.
now I'm tracking everything that's going in there. But if you look back at the actual expense last year, we spent $94,400. So basically, that's a product of all the bulky waste going up there. So it was, when I first got here, was that line item was funded $120,000. This year it's 105. I'm dropping it because I'm not seeing, I don't have $120,000 worth of expenses. It's about $100,000 expense. I'm trying to get the line pegged as what's coming
Yeah.
in.
So that means fewer, either lighter things are being dropped off to the transfer station, or fewer things. Is that-
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's not as
Yeah.
much bulky waste as what
Yeah.
we've had in the past.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Might be a sign of the economy. We're just hanging on to
Yeah, I
everything
wonder.
a little bit
I wonder
long,
what
too.
the reasoning for that is.
Yeah. Good question. Mr. Cheeseman, anything?
No, I don't think I have any questions, thank you.
Sorry?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Salerno.
He has no questions.
The part-time
does.
seasonal, what was that? And I noticed there was only 200 in 2015, and there was
Yeah.
a budget line. Are you using that for
So-
2016?
So, yeah, and the Board of Finance was talking about that, I remember last year at some point. Last winter, as we all remember, we were getting slaughtered with snow plowing. So our whole overtime budgets were way over the 68,000. As you can see, the 114. So the part-time season was really to get summer interns to help do a lot of the stuff around this department. But I usually hire them in the springtime, and that's what the 4,500 was. So last fiscal year, I didn't get a part-time because we were so far over in the storm overtime, and I didn't come back to any boards asking for money. I took it. I didn't fund that, and I took it out of roads and stuff like that. So this year, I was doing the same approach as we were going to wait to see how we got to the winter to see if we were going to do that. But next year, I'm trying to save some money. So I mean, we'll make do in our department.
But do you save money by having an intern?
You
Some?
do. I mean, a lot of times you can have them scan. You can have them scan a lot of files. You can have them do a lot of different things. But last year we had someone specifically in mind that had worked with us in the past. That person graduated from college. He was excellent. We were hoping he'd come back, and he didn't. He accepted another job. So at this stage, we're making do with what we have.
Okay. I just find interns can save you money and provide a service to young professionals moving up.
I understand that. We
yeah.
didn't use one last year. Certainly, we would like to have the opportunity. I was trying to bring the budget in. I mean, that was a line that, as far as I was concerned, was something that was nice. But I was trying to reallocate some funds to some of the areas that, safety equipment and training.
That being said, would you have a use for an intern
It would
this year?
absolutely. I mean, but I'd almost see if I could get someone that would. Sometimes Gary has them down in the planning department that work for. That don't.
I know some of them have their non-paid
Yeah,
positions
non-paid.
because the schools don't allow it. But if you felt you would like an intern, that would be, I guess, a good time.
Okay.
if you would request that line item back up.
Okay, thank you.
Let's, yeah, thanks.
Well,
You go
but-
before the Board of Finance then.
I think the question was, what is the work that's being performed?
Well, that would be a good question.
by,
I mean,
by the intern, and I'm glad Mark asked the question because I thought that this line item was for extra help in terms of extra things that happen during the summer season as our population increases. So I always thought the part-time seasonal was to bring on some extra summer workers to take care of extra things,
That's-
extra work that was generated. So
can you do that with the union, with the, I mean, could we bring on a seasonal team?
We'd have to
rate
check on that, but
roadways?
I inherited that line. The person that was working there before I got here was the same person then that started working that summer that I was, my first year I was here. He was excellent. I was trying to find a way to cut the budget and try to find a, it's certainly helpful to have those people there. I just, if anything, I could. So, but to answer your question, I inherited. So that was not. It might have been that way in the past, but when I got here, it was for interns.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
Just one last question. You're the only one holding the line on the telephone.
Dan, that was your opportunity.
That's an old-time expression.
That's right. But I noticed it's 4,000. Your expense in 2015 was 1,896. Do you anticipate that you're going to have a similar expense for 2016?
Yeah, because we were bringing over the 2015 expense. Now I'm bringing over. There's the cell phone costs of some of the guys in the highway department.
remember you mentioned that before.
We're getting
Okay.
we're getting charged to the building
Yeah.
maintenance. So that's if you bring so and so now it's $50 a month. It's 600 a year. 2 phones is 1,200. So, and I have 2 foremen, and then a portion of my the cell phone. So I was trying to bring, because I remember this board knows
Yep, you mentioned that before.
telephone line was getting beat up on the building maintenance, and I was trying to pull the money out of building maintenance to where the department was being used.
Okay, so you'll be roughly at 4,000 this
Yes.
year with that increase. Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Let's. I think it would be worth 3 more minutes to talk about what happens in a storm, a stormy season like last year. I want to point it out, and for the record, although we're not a land use commission, but last year you were budgeted $68,000 for overtime, storm overtime. Yet you spent $114,000, almost double. That's not because you have slush money. It's not because you have a padded budget. You literally had to go borrow it from another account that just didn't. And I think it came from roads. Am I right?
Correct.
Roads, dams, bridges, other projects that Joe has on his whiteboard or on his plan to go get done that get pushed for yet another year. So. So next year, when let's say we don't get another flake of snow and he comes a little under budget, we're not going to ask for the money back. He's going to go implement those projects that were put off an additional 12 months, and carry on the job at hand. And I think that's worthy of pointing out. This money just doesn't appear out of nowhere, and you take great sacrifice when these big storms come, or a big year that came up last year. I mean, the roads took a hit. We have a cul-de-sac issue up in Walnut Hill, and there's a wall along the road up there, and another dam that we've been putting off doing maintenance on or rebuilding, and it's all coming, out of the storm budget. You do a great job of planning, but then we have these years that spike up sometimes. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, line 224. Last year's actual expense is 132,844, but the budget line was 217. That's exactly.
And there it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
So I took it out of roads.
Right. So I did want to point that out. It didn't come up, but I was fascinated in my first year of actually sitting down and watching this whole budget.